Hello, fourth grade math students. So it's been a while since I've actually taught you, so I'm excited to do that, and I'm excited to see you in a couple minutes to do our live question and answer time. Okay, so we're going to dive right into chapter 7. Before we left, we were learning about multiplying, and that's one of the reasons that you need very badly to know your multiplication table. So I hope you've been working on them for the past 2 weeks, and we're going to need it for dividing. So chapter 7 starts on page 364. Page 364. So I'm going to give you a second to open up to page 364, or if you want to pause this. Okay, just like we do at school, every single time we start a new chapter, we have to diagnose if you are ready or not. Okay, so we are going to diagnose readiness right now on page 364. Okay, you have learned these terms before, so we're seeing if you remember them, and if not, you can remember them now. All right, so number 1 says choose the best term from the box. Let's see if you know before I tell you. In the number sentence, 18 divided by 6 equals 3. 18 is the what? Dividend. Did you know that? It's the dividend. 6 is the divisor. And so 3 must be the quotient. Okay. All right. So number 2, in the number sentence, 5 times 8 equals 40. 5 is anybody? Factor. Okay, the two things that you multiply together are both called factors. Factor, factor. And then the answer is called a what? Does anybody remember? It's not on here. It's called a product. Okay, number 3. Multiplication and division are inverse operations. Okay, so remember, inverse operations means that they are opposite of each other. Okay, so addition and subtraction are opposite of each other. Multiplication and division are opposite of each other, so they're inverse operations. Okay, we're going to move to section B and see if we remember about multiplying times 10, times 100, and times 1,000. Okay, let's look at number 4, and I want us to remember quickly how to do this. Okay, we have 7 times 40. In your mind, you might think, that's kind of hard, but it's really not. What is 7 times 4? 28. And there's 1 0, so you add 1 0 to it. So that would make the answer 280. See, 28 with a 0. Okay, however many zeros are on this side, you put on this side. Okay, number 5 is 2 times 900. Okay, what's 2 times 9? 18. 2 zeros, that makes it 1,800. Okay. Number 6, 3 times 800. What's 3 times 8? That's right, 24. So add 2 zeros, 2,400. Okay, the last one might seem a little bit tricky, but 5 times 2. What's 5 times 2? 10, and then add 2 zeros. Makes 1,000 or 1,000. So there are 3 zeros, but we only added 2 zeros to it because 5 times 2 is 10. Okay, so those are all things that you can do in your head if you know your multiplication tables. If there's just zeros on the end, you just add those zeros to the answer of the multiplication problems that you should already know. All right. So we're not going to do all of these because we need to move along. So let's look at C, division facts. Now remember, multiplication and division are inverse operations. So that means they're opposite of each other. So they're in the same fact family. We'll say they're cousins, okay? So if, number 11, 12 divided by 2 equals, well, if you don't know, all you have to say to yourself is, what times 2 equals 12? Because multiplication is the opposite of division, okay? So that would make 12 divided by 2 be 6, because 6 times 2 equals 12. Got it? Okay. Number 12, we have 20 divided by 4. Well, what times 4 equals 20? That's right, 5. So 20 divided by 4 equals 5. Okay, 9 divided by 3 equals, well, what times 3 equals 9? 3. Okay, 42 divided by 7 equals 6, because 6 times 7 equals 42. Okay, this is why it's very, very important to know your multiplication tables, because if you don't know your multiplication tables, it's going to be very hard to do division. All right, so keep working on those. All right, so let's move on to section D, multiplying. So it says estimate each product, then multiply. Okay, let's remember what estimating is. Estimating is not just a guess, it's an educated guess. So based on what you know, you can guess. All right, so when we estimate, we use what we're going to talk about today. We use compatible numbers. Compatible numbers are basically numbers that are easy to multiply. Numbers that you are used to and that are easy to multiply, like tens, fives, 25s, hundreds, things like that. Okay? So if you look at number 22, you would say, okay, 31 is close to what compatible number? What's something that would be easy to multiply that's close to 31? 30. Okay, so 5 times 30 would be 150. Okay, but then once you actually multiply it, it comes out to 155. So while we're there, let me ask you, was my estimate, 5 times 30, 150, an overestimate or an underestimate of the actual answer? Yes, it is an underestimate because 150 is less than 155. Okay, the way that you know if it's an overestimate or an underestimate is if your compatible number is under the actual number, it's going to be an underestimate. If it's over the actual number, it's going to be an overestimate. Okay, all right, 3 times 25. What's a compatible number to 25? 25. Okay, 25, think of quarters. Okay, so this estimate is going to be spot on. So 3/4 for money, 3 times 25, yes, 75. Okay, all right, so number 24. Number 24, 2 times 167. Now, I would probably either estimate, I would use a compatible number of 150 or 200. If I used a compatible number of 150, I would get 300. If I used the compatible number of 200, I would get 400. Okay, so depends on if you choose the lower or the higher compatible number, if it's going to be an underestimate or an overestimate. The actual answer is 334. Okay, and number 25. 8 times 249. What is a good compatible number for 249? I would say 250, which is just a 25 with a 0 on it. So 8/4. How many dollars you can have? That's right, $2. So 8 times 250 would be Anybody? It would be 2,000. Okay, so what is it? Actually, 1,992 or 1992. That was a good year. I was in 8th grade. All right, so are you ready to learn about division? I hope so, because that's what we're gonna do. All right, so I need you to turn in your book to the next page, and that is using patterns to divide mentally. You should be on page 366. 366. Okay, up on the top, it says an activity. An activity says, what's the rule? And for letter A, it says use a calculator. We don't need to use a calculator. We have one right here, right? Okay, give me 1 second. I have the first set of problems under the activity written down. Okay, so the first one, 15 divided by 3. 15 divided by 3 is 5, because look, 5 times 3 equals 15. Okay, so now I have the zeros underlined. So this is showing you that it's a pattern. Okay, so 15 divided by 3 equals 5, then 150, which is just 15 with a 0, divided by 3 is going to be 50, 5 with a 0. Okay, if 15 divided by 3 is 5, then 1,500 or 1,500 divided by 3 is going to be 500. See, they have the same number of zeros. Okay, 15,000 divided by 3 would be 5,000. Same number of zeros. Okay, got it? All right, so the next section says, now find each quotient without a calculator. We're still going to use our calculator brains. All right, 18 divided by 9. Okay, 18, sorry, it's backwards right now for me. 81 divided by 9 equals 9. So if 81 divided by 9 equals 9, then 810 divided by 9 is going to be 90. And 8,100 or 8,100 divided by 9 is going to be 900. 81,000 divided by 9 is going to be 9,000. Okay, so this says the same number of zeros. Remember, that hasn't always been a hashtag. It used to mean number. Still does. Or pound, but number. Okay, so the same number of zeros on both sides. All right, so when you're dividing using patterns, mentally, what does that mean? Mentally means inside of your brain. You don't need pencil and paper. As long as you know your multiplication tables, you can do these mentally. Okay, before we move on, we're going to have a quick review of what division actually is. Just because we've been away from school for a while and we haven't talked about it, and this is a new chapter, new concept. So I'm going to describe again to you what division is. Right here, I have this board up here, and I have the parts of a division problem labeled, and then I also have what they each do. Okay, so I have a division problem here. Remember, division problems can be written 3 different ways. Let's see, this division problem right here. You read this, 36 divided by 9 equals 4. This way, 36 divided by 9 equals 4. And this way, 36 divided by 9 equals 4. So anytime you see a division problem written either of these 3 ways, you do it the same way. It's just you write the answer in a different place. Okay, we use this division symbol usually for longer division problems, but you can also use them for short division problems. Okay, so on this division problem right here, we have the 3 parts, which is the dividend. that's the 12 right here. The dividend is the number being divided, okay? Then we have the divisor, which is the number the dividend is being divided by, and then that leaves the quotient, which is the answer to a division problem, okay? So on these, this would be the dividend, the divisor, and the quotient. This right here is the number that is actually doing something, okay? So if you remember, the divisor is the one actually doing something, okay? Anytime you see OR or ER on the end of something, it usually means someone that is doing something or something that is doing something, like teacher is the person teaching, okay? Actor is the person acting, okay? So the divisor is the number dividing, okay? So 36 divided by 9 equals 4. So dividend, divisor, quotient. Dividend, divisor, quotient. Dividend, divisor, quotient. So they're just in different places, but they're still doing the same thing. Okay. So for this problem right here, I have 12 objects. They're 12 little people. Okay. And those 12 little people are divided into 6 groups. Okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 groups. So if 12 people are divided into 6 groups, how many people are in each group? 2. See, there's 2 people in each group. So the quotient would be 2 because you're finding out how many people are in each group. So the answer is 2. And the way you check a division problem is by multiplying the quotient times the divisor, and you should get the dividend. Okay, so if the quotient is 2, 2 times 6 equals 12, because remember, multiplication and division are inverse operations. They're the opposite of each other, and they're in the same fact family. Okay. So we're going to move on. You're going to do, we're going to do a few of the check together when we're live. And then for your homework, for your classwork, homework, work at home, you're going to do page 367, practice, which also includes mixed review and test prep. Practice odd. So that means you only do the odd numbers. So 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, etc. Okay. And I want you to do them on paper. You can either use a notebook so that you can keep all of your math stuff together, or you could use a clipboard with lined paper on it, or you could get a binder. As long as you are organized and you can keep everything together, we need to save it. Even after your parents send me pictures, you still need to save it because we're going to go over it the next time. All right. So that's for Tuesday. For tomorrow, Wednesday, we're going to talk about estimating quotients. So estimating, remember, educated guess. And quotients, a quotient is the answer, is estimating answers. Okay, so I want you to look up at the top of page 368. Okay, you'll see underneath vocabulary, compatible numbers, overestimate, and underestimate, which we've already talked about when we were seeing if we were ready to learn about division. And so compatible number is a number that is close by or easy to multiply or divide, and it can help you get an estimate. Sometimes you only need an estimate. You only need to know about how many, okay? If you're feeding a lot of people, would it be better to overestimate or underestimate? Definitely overestimate. You don't want to run out of food, okay? So we can use compatible numbers. Look under example A. It says estimate 310 divided by 8. Okay, so there's two pretend people here that did their compatible number estimates two different ways. Okay, or did their estimates two different ways. Mark used compatible numbers. Okay, Mark says, I adjusted 310 to 320 because 32 divided by 8 equals 4. So 320 divided by 8 equals 40. So 310 divided by 8 is about 40. Okay, so Nina thought about multiplication. She says, I thought 8 times what number is about 310? Well, 8 times 4 equals 32, so 8 times 40 equals 320. So 310 divided by 8 is about 40. So a good estimate is about $40 for each niece. Okay, they both came up with the same estimate. Okay, so for your work for Wednesday, I'm going to have you do page 370, and I'm going to have you do the whole page, but I'm going to have you do odd, okay? So if you get stuck on anything, or if you have a lot of trouble on anything, we will talk about, we'll go over your work, and you can ask any questions, or your parents can email me any questions about your homework, okay? So before I say goodbye and then hello on our live, I want to remind you how to do multiplication, okay? The reason I'm going to remind you how to do multiplication is because you have some in the mixed review and test prep on page 367. So I'm going to do number 22 because you're doing odd. So I'm going to do number 22 so that, you know, I don't give you an answer. Okay. So remember, we always start in the ones place. So we're going to say 8 times 3 is 24. Carry the 2. 8 times 4 is 32. Add the 2. So 34. Carry the 3. 8 times 2 is 16. Add the 3. 19. Okay, so remember, when we start multiplying the tens place, we have to start the answer in the tens place down here. Now, we have to put a space saver. You can put an X, you can put a 0. I don't love putting zeros because then sometimes you can't tell if you actually saved the space or if the answer was a 0. So if you put a 0, maybe put a smiley face inside of it, or maybe put a 0 with an X inside of it. Just you need to put something to save the space and take up the ones place, because we need to start the tens place multiplication in the tens place. Okay, so 3 times 3, 9. 3 times 4, 12, carry the 1. 3 times 2, 6, carry the 1, 7. And then there's no more to multiply, so we need to add them together. Now, if you remember, this is a factor, this is a factor, this is a partial product, and then the answer is a product. So let's start adding in the ones place. 4 plus 0 is 4. 4 plus 9, 13, carry the 1. 1 plus 9 plus 2 is 12, carry the 1. 1 plus 1 plus 7 is 9. Now, normally you would count 3 over and put a comma, but this is money. So how many decimal points are we going over? Now notice that there's no money on the bottom. And there's no decimal points on the bottom. So how many do we go over? 2. So 1, 2. And then don't forget the dollar sign. Okay, so the answer to number 22 would be $92.34. Okay, so we have to remember to carry. We need to remember to save our space. Remember, if there was 100, you would save 2 places and start at the hundreds. Okay, and we need to add them together. Okay, all right, so I will see you if you're watching this at the beginning of our Zoom time. I'll see you in a minute. All right, bye.